We're ready to go?
I think we're good to go.
Good. It's always like that little pre before you really know if you're live or not.
Yeah, is anyone listening to us yet?
Is anyone even listening? Should we wait? Good morning or good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. This is another, well, we kind of call it an episode of Coffee Talk with Ash and Sue.
Our favorite TV show.
Yes. And today, and we just want to point out that putting makeup on takes a lot longer than we remember.
Like, I used to have my routine like that. No, not anymore.
No, I was like, whoa, I'm going to be late. That's going to take some time. Okay, seriously though, today we're going to talk about common mistakes that we've really noticed over the last, 2.5 years that companies are making. We're going to talk about a few that we've made ourselves and really share some insight into what we see companies doing and how we think we can offer some suggestions so that you're not making these common mistakes. Mm-hmm. So I think I'll start off maybe with you, Ash, but also before we kind of get rolling, stay tuned through the whole episode, because at the end of our episode today, we're going to share some information on how you can get a free marketing guide that we're going to send out at the end. So
don't go anywhere.
Yes, don't go anywhere. We want you here the whole time because we have some really, really
great content for you.
Yes, Ashley's got some really, really good content today. So
okay, getting right into it. Y'all know I love to chat, so let's go. Number one thing that I think is a common mistake that companies are making when they're looking to get into the digital space for their advertising is that they're setting their campaigns for way too short of a duration. And I know a lot of the times that comes because people are like nervous about the costs associated to produce the content, to have someone managing it, to get ads out there. So a lot of times I hear companies come to us or just even chatting, like even if they're not working with us, trying something out for like 3 or 4 weeks and being like, oh, digital marketing doesn't work, can't do it, cutting it out. The thing is, 3 to 4 weeks is not enough time for that. We like to tell people you need to try at least 3 months. And the reason for that being is you need time to set up different touch points, different awareness pieces for customers to get to know who you are, because I think it's like 6 to 10 touch points that a customer needs with your business before they'll even consider buying from you. And a lot of times people jump in the game, they put their sales post up and they wonder why they're not getting sales. And the reason for that is you need to spend the time warming them up, getting them to know who you are, putting that little bit of awareness about what your product offering is, what people think about your product, testimonials of people that are using it. And that all takes time. So usually we'll spend the first month of a campaign just getting that all out there, building engagement on the pages, interacting with customers, finding out who your audiences are before we even touch the selling factor, which I think a lot of people don't realize is a valuable investment into the campaign length. And then from there, you can start teasing in the sales and trying to work more on your conversion funnels and all of those great pieces. But without having that long-term plan in mind, a lot of people miss the mark, which I think is a very big mistake because the digital space has expanded so much in the last year, especially. Ads alone are Q1 of this year compared to Q1 of last year, 60% more being spent in the digital space.
It's crazy.
So a lot of times too, people don't even consider the ad factor and they're sticking organic.
And I think too, that's the next thing that we see people making a big mistake on is budget. So, they'll look at me and they'll say, okay, we want to launch this campaign, whether it's local, whether it's global, whether it's national, whatever the campaign is. And they'll say, well, what should we spend on budget? And the first thing is I don't see companies and organizations, first of all, spending enough. Mm-hmm. If you're trying to target a large demographic, like let's say you're targeting all of Canada, well, your ad budget isn't going to be a few $100s. So what we like to say is start with some smaller locations and test out ad budgets. And we can sort of determine based on the population and the target audience is what you should spend. But the number one thing I see is people not spending enough money on their Google ad or their Facebook, Instagram ad budget. And just like Ashley said, the 60% more factor is that I think that we need to talk about the fact that the algorithm for Facebook has changed so much now. That back when Ashley and I were doing this
years ago,
just yesterday, but I mean, Ash and I have been doing this for 7 years, running ads. And And back when we first started, you could get so much organic traffic. So remember, you put something on Facebook and everyone would talk about that they saw your post, so those vanity metrics, the likes, the followers. But now what we're seeing is only 4 to 6% of your organic traffic is actually getting seen or getting engagement. So the second mistake we see is not putting enough budget behind whatever you're doing when it comes to your marketing strategy. Like, make sure that you're doing that, because we see that a lot. And then that's when a lot of companies are saying, well, we're just not getting that return on ad spend. But you need to spend a lot of money sometimes up front to start to warm up that audience.
And I think it's important to, a lot of times companies want to spend the ad dollars on posts that they see as like sales posts. But when we're talking about warming up your audiences in order to get them familiar with your brand so that they will buy from you, it's really important to take the more organic feeling posts that don't necessarily have any call to action to buy, and promoting those so that you can actually start to reach the people and warm them up. Otherwise, with that 4 to 6% organic reach, you're never going to get enough volume of people learning about you until you're spending. And one other note on like the ad budget that I would like to say as well is, a lot of times, even if we get the budget to like a healthy enough size to start, it's important to know that like pick products that are converting to back, and choose 1 or 2 things to start. Because if you're trying to spread this budget across all of Canada, across all of your product offerings, at the end of the day, that's going to be a very small portion to each specific product that we're spending, and not enough to gain enough traction. So if you're looking for that return on ad spend, those big conversions, what we like to say is pay attention to what works and look at that data, so that when you're starting to run your ads, sure, choose maybe 5 or 6 things that you want to kind of get out there for awareness. And I'm going to bring in a client example right now. I know I'm skipping ahead kind of, but we're working right now with a local company, Lockstone, and we started with that awareness piece. And I just paid attention to what ads people were engaging with, what things are popular for the season for them. And I sprinkled a bit of that out there. And in this last few weeks, we saw that literally fireplaces are what people want right now. So why would I spend my time on a limited budget to promote out all these other products that they offer when I know that people are buying the fireplaces? And if I continue to put money behind that, they're going to continue to buy fireplaces. So that's a really good place to start, so that you can get yourself into a good place and see the value of what digital ads can do for you. And then eventually there's either room to maybe as the season changes, pull back on the fireplaces, or find extra ad dollars to put into this once you see how well that one section's doing, to start testing another one. But a lot of times people say, okay, now split what you're spending on these fireplaces and introduce this other product. Well, maybe that's too little for the new product to be able to sell.
Yeah, for sure. And we see that a lot. We see a lot of organizations and companies come in and say, well, we want to market all of these different, and it's not just items, it could be services, it could be, sometimes we'll be doing different events. It doesn't really matter what that, let's call it a product is. And they'll say, well, we have this ad budget and we want to promote all of these things. And most of the time it's never enough. Mm-hmm. So really focusing only on a few things. And then once we really get that data and we know how that product is selling or how clients are engaging with that product, then start to morph into a new ad budget for your next item. But that, like, we want to promote everything on our website, that never works. Mm-hmm. Because you don't have the ad budget to do that. And I think product specific does better than just, promoting your website in general.
Absolutely. You're giving people a purpose to go and find what you're pushing and saying, here's this one item, here is why it's great, here are other people that like this one item, you should go buy this one item, rather than here's our storefront, go browse. There's a specific call to action in their mind, which converts a lot better.
And then also what we've noticed, and again, we have empathy for, and we can jump around, Ash, because we kind of have a script, but we can jump around, but we have empathy for companies right now that are trying to do this on their own, because it has become so much more complicated on how you're going to run your social media and your Google media or your Google ads right now, as opposed to a few years ago. It's a lot more strategic, and there's a lot more variables that you have to be aware of. And we're even noticing them. And so I'm going to jump into like the set it and forget it. And it's something that we see so many companies doing. They start running ads. And I mean, Ash is a testament to how much you need to change and move once you create your ad set. So what we're seeing is, well, you build out a few ad sets, and a few of them aren't doing well, but you're letting that budget just run and you don't have time, or you're not looking into it. Why would you continue to run ad sets that are poor performers when you have better performers? Delete them, get rid of them. Don't wish that item is going to get engagement, or don't wish that you're going to get people to engage with that ad set. Just get rid of it and focus on the ones that are doing well, and then keep changing them. So I've seen Ashley change one word in an ad set, and just by changing copy in one word, whether it's on the creative or whether it's in the copy of the post, get a ton more engagement. So make sure you're not setting and forgetting. Keep going in and making these changes, because that's the only way that you're going to maximize those dollars, as opposed to, just being, and everybody's short on time, but not just setting it and then forgetting about it, because that's probably one of the biggest mistakes we see people make. So for your, maybe $500 ad spend, instead of getting, only a low amount of engagement, you can triple that. So really don't just set them, like keep changing them, A/B testing, move things around. And one last quick thing about that is, I see bigger companies with a marketing campaign. So they've got all their assets ready to go. They've got this great marketing campaign. It has a message. And then what happens is you start to put that out in a digital realm and it doesn't get engagement. Don't be afraid to change the message. It should be evolving. It should be ongoing. Digital media has to flow and change and move around. It can't just be that you set it once and then, leave it that way.
So budget aside, because we know that's a whole beast in its own, and we've spent some time talking about it now. Another common mistake that we see pretty regularly is not paying attention to what your reputation looks like online. And what this looks like is responding to Google reviews, responding to Facebook reviews. Do you even have those? People want to see that feedback from their peers, from the public, on how things are actually working, because again, there's that level of trust in this digital space. And it's become a lot more important and prevalent, I would say, in the last year, because so many people that weren't shopping online prior to the pandemic have now come to online out of necessity. So they're ones that are even more worried that who they're buying from isn't who they say they are, that they're not going to get a good customer experience. And they're looking for that verification online that exists.
Yeah. So I think that we spend a lot of time, even as marketers, really focusing on how can we get the best creative out there and how can we get the best results. That's what we do. We want and we're so adamant about that. Like if we see something underperforming, we take it personally, and we're like, no, we've got to change these ad sets and we've got to make them better. But I think we all forget about how important your reputation is. And I think when, Google reviews first came out, people were so gung-ho and everyone was leaving reviews, and now it's kind of tapered off. And I think it's really important to go back to that. So, ask your clients what they think about you. Encourage people to leave reviews. And it could be, there's organizations that need Glassdoor reviews. It could be, it doesn't matter what that reputation management is.
And I read recently that I think somewhere close to, I don't know the exact stat, but close to 80% of your customers are willing to leave you a referral or a review, but only 11% of them get asked. That's a whole 70% that's missing out on that opportunity to share their opinion if they just got the opportunity or that little nudge to go and do it. So I think that's a very big piece that people are missing out on. That is a free opportunity to spread that awareness, that cold reach to other people.
Yeah, excellent. Like that's an excellent point. And we're not perfect either. We're guilty of it. We ebb and flow. Sometimes we get on this real kick where we reach out to a lot of customers, but then we get busy and then we don't do it either. So really, really important. And for even us as a little, kick today, to go ahead and make sure that we're asking for those reviews. And speaking of mistakes, and again, jumping around a bit, but, we just have to laugh at, as a marketing agency for our own marketing, it's like, we're so busy focusing on everyone else's marketing and making sure everything's perfect that sometimes when it's our marketing, we're maybe not doing, our due diligence for us. So yesterday, I'll let you tell the story because it's funnier when you tell it.
All right. Remember, today's talk is about common mistakes people make in marketing, right? So it's, 9:30 last night, I get a text from Suzanne. Hey, just clicked on our ad for tomorrow's coffee talk. Link doesn't work. Goes to a 404 page. And I'm sitting there and I am certain, like I double checked them. I pulled the link. I was on the website for the link. I know that link worked. So I'm just like, okay, where did you see this ad? Let me go look. So I'm clicking on every single piece of marketing material we have running this entire week. And I click on it and all of it is 404. So lucky for all of you that made it here. I think it was probably less than 5 hours that this kind of snafu happened. But what we did was we've recently a little bit rebranded our coffee talks. We used to be called Coffee Dates, and we changed the URL midday yesterday. The redirect didn't work properly, so anyone that was clicking through was getting sent to Coffee Dates when in the URL is now Coffee Talks. So there was like just that little misstep, and that's why, again, clicking on your own ads to see the customer journey is key. People are scared to click on their own ads; they don't want to spend their money. But if Sue didn't check that, then we would have run the ads for the whole rest of the day. Every kind of where that you would have seen previously to kind of click through to today's talk would have been wrong. So it's very key to do that. And also on that note, internal communication, if you are changing stuff, even if you dotted your I's, crossed your T's, there was one, I think, slash that was missing in our URL redirect. But at least that way, if you tell the team that you're changing something, then you can have more people go and double check your steps, because it never hurts to have extra sets of eyes on everything you're doing.
And that leads me to double check all of your ads. Ashley just said it, but not only just your ads. I had a client that I was onboarding yesterday, and we were ready to bring them in for a huge social digital campaign. And I was really excited. I think it's a different industry for us, and I was pumped. So I was on the phone with the client, and I went to their website, and I was like, okay, what should we focus on? And I started to go through their products, and I was going through the different tabs, and all of a sudden I was hitting on some like pieces in their website, and it was glitching. It was timing out. I had to go refresh the page to go back to the shopping cart. And I said, I am not doing your campaign. And they said, well, what do you mean? Like, we want to start today. And I said, I can't, in good faith, run any ads to anything on your website when your website is performing so badly. And they had just done a bunch of upgrades. So when I originally had looked at their company, everything had worked. But they had just had a lot of upgrades done to their site. And the individual I was working with hadn't had the time to go in and look. So then he was like, oh my gosh, I asked them to change this, but this isn't working and this isn't working. Well, yeah, we need to double check that before we run any ads. We need to make sure that all of that is perfect. So again, that customer journey, I'm always preaching that, but it's so important. And look at where your ads are going. Make sure they're going to the right place. If it says learn more, make sure you're learning more. If it says apply now, make sure it's going to an application.
Especially because like the attention span of the customer online today, people are busy, people are distracted. You have like 3 to 5 seconds to catch their attention. If you got to click through, great. If your website doesn't load in that first 3 seconds, guess what? I'm bored. I'm closing that. I'm continuing my scroll through my feed. And you have now lost someone that potentially was ready to buy from you.
And you went and marketed for your competitor.
Mm-hmm.
So that company that individuals would have been going to, if I was driving ads there, they would have went to this website. The website wouldn't have performed. They still wanted the product, right? So they would have just gone to the next competitor and went, well, this didn't work, so let's go here. And then lifetime, long-term value client potentially lost because your website didn't function. So look at all of these pieces. We talk about it a lot, but these are some different scenarios that we see happen. It's really about like continually clicking and looking and going through, and sometimes having other people come in and just saying, hey, we just launched this campaign. We've just updated our website. Can you take a look at this and make sure everything's working, on your phone and on desktop to make sure that it's all functioning properly?
Absolutely. And on that note, with like checking all of that stuff and testing everything, we want to talk about some like clients we've worked with recently that we really see some of these results creating success for them. So I think first up, we want to discuss, we've done a lot of work recently with Lakehead University and Lakehead Georgian in Southern Ontario on helping create their digital presence for their recruitment cycle to bring on new students for the upcoming year, to get some of their key messaging out there. And when we started, I think we wanted to refresh and like give some youth and some life to the digital presence that they had, because everything they were working with was all pulling from their traditional based sources. So their print materials, their website, all of that stuff, which has its purpose and like works really well with how it's doing. But to translate that into like an Instagram feed where you're marketing to youth who are used to engaging in all of the new trends and everything, it was a big shift, and we took that opportunity to redesign a feed for them that kind of brought a little bit more of what students were looking for. And I remember when we took some of the images and the posts and we sent them for proof, and we heard back, and it was just, oh, like, these are great. With these posts, can we just run the old ones? So let's use the ones that we're used to running. They match some of our traditional media that's out there. Let's do that. And I sat there and I said to Suzanne, I was like, you know what? Like, sure, that's what the client wants, but I really don't think they're going to do well. So Suzanne replies to the client, and I think offered the A/B testing, right?
Yeah. So I said, so this is again another mistake, and I think the reason that it's a mistake is because we're not so used to the difference between what we used to do digitally and what we used to do now, traditionally and digitally. So I said, look, let's A/B test, because we really, really feel like these images that we've set up for digital are going to perform a lot better than the ones that you had before, where your audience was more maybe a traditional audience versus a digital audience. And sure enough, they didn't just slightly outperform, they immensely outperformed. Like I was actually really proud of Ash, because Ash knows when something's going to do well because she's been doing it for a long time, where our clients sometimes, how would they know that? And they were so happy with the results. And the whole point to this is that I think sometimes we all do this without data. We think we know what's going to convert.
And sometimes like the whole team would be like, oh, Ash, what's going to work? And I will literally tell them, let me try to, because I don't know. And they're like, if you had to guess, give me something to pitch to the client. And I will literally say, give me a week to get data, because I don't know. And without that, if we just run the one because my gut told me that, and the other, and it doesn't do well, then we wasted a whole week of like collecting that data to find out like where our opportunities lie in order to improve and see better success.
So that's why we'll run a lot of different, and we recommend this to our audience today, run a lot of different creative, because you never know what people will engage with. And it comes in masses, and that's the interesting thing is a big sort of swarm of individuals will gravitate towards one type of media for your product or your service. And you don't know that until you run another piece and they don't engage with it whatsoever. And we've laughed at what people engage with because we never thought that. We'll run it out there and I'll go, wow.
And sometimes it's as simple as two different designs of the same kind of content. It can be as simple as the exact same design with different copy headlines. Just to it can be two images at a time, as simple as that, so you can start to see what people are engaging with, or maybe the exact same image, but one has a blue background, one has a yellow background, just to see the little variations that people like. And once you start to collect that data, every time you iterate new creative, you're going to get better and closer to what the audience is looking for, which is really key. And you're always keeping things fresh by doing so people aren't getting that fatigue out of your ads as quickly, because you already are prepared to be switching and engaging with your audience, instead of just putting that $50 boost behind the entire city with the same piece of creative, setting it there, forgetting it, letting it run, seeing, oh, how did it do? Oh, we got like 50 clicks. That's cool. Like, what do you do with that after? There's not a lot to take away for your next campaign from that. So
yeah, and that's the other thing. That's a super important point. Is don't get frustrated by your first campaign. So maybe you're launching a campaign on whatever it is that you need engagement in, and maybe your first campaign, for whatever reason, not enough ad spend, the creative wasn't where it should have been. It doesn't matter. You'll learn from that. And the only place that you can go is up, right? When you get that data. So our goal is always like, okay, let's go up. Let's get more traffic, more sales, more leads, more engagement, more, hires, more whatever it is that we're focusing on, because you take that data and you really look at it and you say, oh, remember when we did this? This really worked well. Let's focus on this. Or they never engaged with that. Remember? Yeah. Okay. Let's make sure we change it out. So I think that's a mistake, right? Not being impatient, don't be impatient, because this shit takes time. It's so much trial and error. But we've really seen some amazing results when you start to put some of these practices in place, big or small.
And I talked about Lockstone earlier, but I think they're a really great example right now of taking that kind of data-driven approach and spending the time to build it. So I think I mentioned that we started in that awareness phase. We kind of seed what content people were engaging with. We saw that the fire pits were doing really well. And I want to say that during all of this time, so we had several different campaigns in digital ads running for this, and we build off the momentum of what we're learning from it. And especially right now, I'm not sure like if people that are like watching right now, if you're running a lot of ads, if you've noticed, but Apple just released their new iOS, and it's affecting how tracking works in ads. So it's really, really important to pay attention and build off the momentum of what you're doing, because with less tracking options available, most people are opting out of tracking. You need to really hone in on the options you have available in order to continue to get in front of the proper audience. And I think that by building an ongoing campaign versus a start and stop, you can really pay attention to how the dollars are working for you and build off that momentum and making those changes. But in other clients, what I've noticed is if we start one and run it for a month and stop for a month and then start a new one due to budget constraints or whatever it may be, that whole time you spent warming up the audience is kind of wasted, because then they kind of leave and they're less familiar with you. They're not seeing your stuff anymore. So they become cold again. So you have to go through that phase over and over again, because lookalike audiences and retargeting are starting to have less of an impact than they did before, just due to the nature of how the digital space is changing.
Yeah, and this is my last point, because I want to we have a couple questions. We won't get time for a lot of them because we knew this was going to be something that Ash and I are really passionate about this. So we knew we were going to talk about this a lot. But my last, I guess, mistake that I see people make is getting stuck and kind of going from what Ash just said, doing the same thing when it comes to your platforms. So, I've always run Facebook ads. I've never been on Instagram. I've never been on Twitter. I've never been on LinkedIn. TikTok, we're doing so much more for TikTok right now, and we're getting some great results. We're doing it for companies that we never thought we would do it for. Looking at, podcast advertising potentially. So, getting outside of your comfort zone and always doing the same thing all the time and looking at some other platforms, and yeah, maybe you'll test it out and you won't get engagement. Although on the other side of it, you could get crazy engagement from it. So throwing in video and mixing it up a bit. So not doing the same thing all the time. I think that's another thing we see people do, because it's, you get familiar with Facebook ads and that's great, but there's a lot of other things that you can do other than just, putting out your Facebook ads. So,
and I like to say that you start with Facebook and you start with Instagram, that's where you're familiar. And then you get there and it's working, or you're happy with your presence, then introduce one of the new platforms. You don't have to introduce everything all at once. So this is what we did with some of our clients. We're like, okay, we're going to start recommending, we're going to do maybe 2 TikToks a month just to see what that's like, just to see what that's out there. And then we saw results. Okay, we'll keep this up for another month, seeing good results. All of a sudden, okay, let's change how we're doing our budget. We kind of know what we're doing here. Let's keep some of this content rolling, but shift more of the time into this new platform that all of a sudden is engaging with more than, it's not just the 16-year-olds on TikTok, as much as people like to think that. There's all these different facets and sides that you can connect with so many different people in such an easy algorithm-driven way right now, where if you're not on there, then you're wasting opportunities.
Curtis is giving us the start the Q&A, but just feeding off of that as well. And I'm sorry, Curtis, I know that we're supposed to do the Q&A though, is that, that whole point about where you think your audience is again. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's the mistake, because people will tell me, they'll say to me, well, no, I'm not going to advertise on there because my clients aren't on there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, they are. They're definitely on there. And let's use LinkedIn really quick for an example. If you're business to business, your clients are on LinkedIn. So maybe look at retargeting them after they've been on LinkedIn. You look at all these different things, try different things. There's marketing when somebody's, in your Gmail, and there's marketing in Facebook Messenger, and
YouTube ads
and YouTube pre-roll. And there is so much potential. It's almost like a menu of items that you can play around with. Yet people seem to get caught up in 1 or 2 and then never get out of that, that boring realm. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Okay. We have one question. We have 1 minute.
I think it's on your phone, the question, if you want to pull it up.
I'm just going to read it out.
Oh, okay. Curtis is reading it out.
The voice behind the camera.
Oz.
Okay, so question. Would you say it's better to use Number of different strategies, even if you have a small budget, or would you focus on one specific strategy or one specific platform?
So my personal opinion is that if you are on a limited budget, strategize in phases. So put your efforts towards doing something really well, and then in the next phase, introduce the next platform that you want to be on, or the next ad dollar phase you want to kind of go into. But when you start to, if you're on a fixed budget and you try to do everything, you're not doing anything great. You're not reaching anyone because there's not enough time and effort and ad spend going to that one platform. And this is just what I've seen, is that I know that we want to be everywhere because that's what we just preached to you, is be everywhere. But if you're not doing, if you don't have the resources to do that, take your time, spend the first quarter on one platform and developing that, and then you kind of know what works. You can sort of start to recycle some of that content that you've already produced and get stuff scheduled ahead of time, and then you can jump in and spend that time and budget on the new platform.
For sure. Yeah. I just know that Curtis is like, okay, it's one. Wrap it up. Wrap it up. So you can always reach out. We will be, let's see what Curtis is saying right now.
So reminder that we're giving you that freebie. If you haven't already joined our Coffee Talk email list, you can go to our website. All of our links now work to send you there. You can find them on social. So if you sign up for our email list, we're gonna send that out to all of our subscribers, giving you that free little bit of advice on how to get these results from marketing.
For sure, for free. And if you just want to ask us questions, we're always here. We try to, offer as much. We love this. This is our fave. I think what we do here at Shout is definitely the digital and the social.
And the more questions you send us, the more we can tailor these talks to what you're interested in.
Or send us something that you want us to talk about. Our next one though, oh yes, I'm supposed to mention this, is Sanoga and I will be doing a full coffee talk on SEO, because SEO is, I've never seen SEO so popular and so important right now. Mm-hmm. And we will do a full coffee talk coming up on
end of June.
We'll
email you the date again. Sign up.
Yep.
Sign up.
And swipe up. But we'll do a full session on SEO coming up at the end of June.
Yeah.
Bye,
everyone.
Bye, everyone.